Evolution is the process in which organisms change over time. Would you agree, Andre?
No, I would agree.
Okay. Describe the evolution of rap music from your generation to what it has become now.
Rap music started out, and I know I'm gonna lose you on this. Started out with Curtis Blow and the Sugar Hill Gang, and it basically hit the streets. It hit the streets before it hit the radio, and it was more or less like kids in school making nursery rhymes, picking at each other, making fun of each other. Your shoes is blue, your eyes is red, your hair's nappy on your head. It started with stuff like that when I was a kid. It's just that they started putting rap music to it. And again, when more TVs came into homes and stuff, and kids began to look at TV and stuff, the Yo MTV rap thing, when it came along in the early 80s, kind of blew it up. But people in New York and places like that had already put music to it. Down south, we just did it in the classroom. Whoa. You see, it's hard to call it all hip hop because it wasn't just hip hop. It was not hip hop then. It was funk. It was George Clinton and Funkadelic. It was Parliament. Yes, Parliament. It was the Barcades and all of that. It's when you actually didn't have a turntable on stage, but you actually had guys who was garage band guys who basically put it on mainstream thanks to Soul Train.
Describe the 1980s in one word.
Spectacular,
Describe the 1990s in one word.
sobering,
What did you think of the East Coast versus West Coast rap beef during the 90s?
childish.
How did you react to the death of Tupac and Biggie?
Biggie wasn't so much. Tupac was a very, very deep individual. Tupac had two veins in each arm. He had an East Coast vein because of where he was born and raised. Then he had a West Coast vein to where he went out to the West Coast and actually perfected the art of what he was doing. He became an actor. He was not from the hoods of LA like he was from the hoods of New York. He went out to LA, and you brought the subject up. He went through an evolution to where he became mainstream on what he was doing organically.
Describe an artist during that era that never got the push he or she deserved. To me, I feel like that individual was Shine. He was, I don't know if you know who that is. Shine.
That was arrested with took the beef Puff Daddy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I was watching a documentary and I seen the music that he was dropping, and next thing you know, the situation
Yeah,
happens.
but if you look at it like that, you could go all the way back to Motown. It depends on what Barry Gordy wanted to do with the artists in Motown. It was a lot of artists that was beautiful that you didn't hear because they just didn't fit in to where they contractually being able to get money out of it. He would tell them that their music wasn't that good, so he can take it and sell it to someone else or give it to someone that he really wanted to promote. You get where I'm going with that?
Yes, sir.
Just like the band The Three Degrees. The Three Degrees, in my opinion, sound just as good as Diana Ross and the Supremes, but you got to look at marketing.
I have a friend who told me, friend from New York, who told me the 1990s was basically the last decade that just felt electrifying, that made you feel alive. Would you agree so?
No, sir.
No, okay.
No, sir. Because I guarantee you that person never did get the inspiration of feeling and hearing James Brown sing I'm Black and I'm Proud, which was unheard of at the time that he was singing it. Because I'm Black and I'm Proud came out when the Black Panthers and that movement was going, and we still had bad segregation and all of that stuff in the house, in the South. But then you have to go even before James Brown when B.B. King, Muddy Waters, and all of those was playing over in Europe. Southern Delta Mississippi blues. Sir, I'm gonna say when you look at evolution, you have to go all the way back to Howlin' Wolf and all of them guys breaking barriers in order for you to hear from black radio stations, the guys in the 80s and 90s.
Describe sports in the 1990s compared to now, or 1980s and 90s compared to now.
No comparison. I have this argument all the time. There's no way a superstar in the 80s could come and play with those guys in the 90s, and there's no way the guys in the 90s can come and play with these giants that we have now. You talking about, I was looking at ESPN the other night. This guy's 355, run full court, dunk the basketball.
Mm.
355, 6'7", 355. He ain't dunking it just because he's dunking it because he's a sure athlete.
Do you know who Victor Wembanyama is? He's like a center that plays on the San Antonio Spurs. Like,
Don't go to basketball questions with me. I know nothing
he's
about
like
basketball.
he's like a 7'5" positionless at. Okay,
Yeah,
I was
but
just trying to see if you were to. Put
he's
him
not
in.
a football player.
Oh, okay.
I'm a
You're
football
a
guy.
football guy. Okay. So during the 90s, you had MJ, you had
Yeah.
Freaknik, you had the rise of hip hop artists
Yes.
like Diddy, Jay-Z, Tupac,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if you know this, but Dragon Ball Z aired for the first time on U.S. television.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you ever watched that anime.
Just a little bit of it.
Okay. Am I missing anything else that made up the 1990s?
I think the 90s was basically going through a point to where we did not know where we were going with music, because at that point you had De La Soul and all of those guys in the 90s who had white members in it. You had white artists coming out. What was his name? Vanilla Ice. Them guys was coming out with the beats. So you have to look at it like that. It ain't exactly the lyrics that they saying. Is, my God, where are they getting the beats from? Because now you're going from somebody who's just sampling a record to where this guy got a beat machine. He can make the drums do whatever he want. He can make guitar sounds on his organ and all of that. Evolution of technology. And that's the thing, if we went back to football, that's the thing about football now, the technology and to keeping this guy healthy and his recuperating time to play another week when it's giants clashing against giants, like NASCAR racing. The guys who drove those cars back in the day when NASCAR started couldn't come and drive these cars of the day because of the evolution, the different suspensions, the different way the cars handle now. Nothing stays the same.
Now to discuss on politics. How was politics during the 80s when Reagan was in office?
When Reagan was in office, my opinion, but you got to look at my opinion when Reagan was in office, I was I was a father raising kids. His war on drugs, I knew his war on drugs wasn't going to work because there's no way you can control people's thirst for drugs just like you couldn't do in the Al Capone years. That's the reason the United States did a complete turnaround on prohibition. Let them have the alcohol. At least we can tax it and we can somewhat control it. Because other countries do a lot better job on their war on crimes than the United States do. Our job in law enforcement and from the federal government was to throw money at it.
How would you describe politics in the 90s when Clinton was in office?
Clinton sold what Reagan didn't sell, just like after Clinton, Bush sold what Clinton didn't sell. My thing about politics, and I've always worked for politicians, it's what works today.
During the 90s,
Hmm.
Clinton, they say Clinton had the economy booming, but I take a look at what was happening behind the scenes of everything. I did some research and realized that he was the one with the help of George H.W. Bush. He helped pass the crime bill, and this crime bill apparently it punished those that had rock cocaine. Those with rock cocaine faced longer sentences, even though those who had powder cocaine faced lesser punishment. So it's like you're rewarding those with powder cocaine because they probably saw those with powder cocaine as okay, you're on your way to Wall Street,
Hmm.
therefore you
Hmm.
must have money.
Hmm.
Or we're not gonna punish you compared to if you got rock cocaine, you must be broke, you must not really make an impact in society. Therefore, we're just gonna give you a harsher sentence. Do you know anyone that fell victim to this trap?
Absolutely. But I don't call it victim to a trap. I call it whichever wheel squeaks is going to get the grease. And I'm going to go back to it again. It depends on what can sell from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock because that covered your state. That covered the Atlanta metro area, be it Fox 5, Channel 11, Channel 2. Then you had the national news that came on after that. It was more or less like a concentrate version of the coffee that you done drunk already for three. Now, let's go back to Clinton. Clinton, you're right. The economy was booming, but it was pay me later. And when pay me later came, is when Obama had to deal with it because Bush, more or less, which Bush Jr. was my favorite president, everything gets pushed forward. Everything get pushed forward. We'll deal with that in 4 years. If I'm not in office, that'll be his problem. If I'm in office, that'll be another 4 years I could push it down the street. You're a young man. I don't know if you've ever heard the term kicking the can. Yeah, that's that's what politicians do. Kick the can. And you know how politicians make up for kicking the can? Tell me I have something against you because I would be further along the way if I just gave you somebody to blame. We knew that war on drugs was not going to work because we knew the thirst for it. We knew prohibition wasn't going to work because we knew the thirst for it. We know when we go out here and sell these kids these Hellcats and Corvettes and all, we know that's not going to work for them because those that don't go out here and get themselves in serious trouble, once they get older and have a kid, they're going to sell that Corvette because they can't fit a baby seat in it. Evolution.
What are some pros that you see from this generation?
The generation coming or the generation we're in?
The well, both this current generation and the one that's coming.
The generation we're in, we are basically we don't know. We are standing in line in TSA waiting to get on the plane. The generation that's coming is the generation that's go either fly that plane or crash it. Because you look at the generation, my generation, we had the American dream. You go out, you get you a good job, look forward to having a pension. Did you ever notice how the pensions was taken away?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's more or less like you invest this much and we'll match it unless the economy is bad. But you see, my generation believed in the pension, and you go out here and you work hard for somebody, and you'll get a pension at the end. That pension will supplement your Social Security. Well, you see, this generation is saying, no, I want you to give it to me now. Because you keep telling me, I keep hearing every 4 years when a politician is running for office, if we don't jump in and open up our thing and turn into Superman, Social Security is not going to be here. And my question would be, well, if you're so sure Social Security is not going to be here, let me keep my Social Security and invest my own in my own future because I'm the one got to live in it. So I look at the generation coming is the one got to fly the plane. The generation that we're in now is the one through TSA, and my generation is saying, well, we made it. Hope y'all land safer.
To conclude this topic on evolution, what would you want others to learn about your generation?
Don't get stuck like my generation believing things would always stay the same. Andrew, in my generation, sir, I went from vinyl records. I want you to think about this. We went from vinyl records to 8-track tapes. Excuse me, sir. We're going to start at reel to reels, if you know what that is. Wow. To vinyl records, to 8-track tape players, to cassette players, to CDs. And now, if you had a company producing them five, it ain't worth no more than you dusting your feet off at the doormat. Because now everything is streamed, or you could just get on your phone and listen to anything you want to. In my generation, sir, think
Andre, thank you for this topic.
about it. You're welcome. See this guy's raised beds out here? See his raised beds? His raised vegetable garden right there outside
Oh
of the
yeah,
door.
yeah.
He can produce more in that raised bed than if you plowed up your whole yard. You get where I'm going? Evolution.